Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one. The marriage between Anna Nicole Smith and J. Howard Marshall II in 1994 went down in history as one of Hollywood's most controversial. The model was only 26 years old, while the oil billionaire was already 89 and in a wheelchair. The union was surrounded by speculation of financial interest and, after his death the following year, generated a long legal dispute over the inheritance that dragged on for years in court. Very rare photos of Marilyn Monroe with John F. Kennedy. They were taken in May of 1962, just minutes after her iconic performance of Happy Birthday, Mr. President, at Madison Square Garden. The meeting reinforced rumors of an intimate affair between the two, which to this day remains shrouded in mystery and speculation. In 1964, photographers staged a controversial scene by capturing a model dressed as Marilyn Monroe in an intimate pose with a double of President John F. Kennedy. The intention was to explore rumors of an alleged relationship between the two, which were already circulating intensely at the time. If this image had been revealed during the years when the rumors gained strength, it could have provoked a scandal of great proportions. Joseph Goebbels, minister of propaganda in the Nazi Party, and one of the darkest figures of the Nazi regime, upon discovering that the photographer was Jewish. He, who had been smiling, immediately began casting a look full of hatred throughout the entire League of Nations conference. In the 1940s, when the bikini was still considered an affront to moral standards, it was common for bathers to be reprimanded or even fined for the daring size of the piece. The photo shows a young woman being fined by a police officer precisely for wearing a swimsuit considered improper for the time. In December of 1970, the White House hosted an unlikely meeting: President Richard Nixon and the King of Rock, Elvis Presley. The singer appeared by surprise, asking for a meeting, and ended up being received in the Oval Office. The reason? Elvis wanted to offer his help in the fight against drugs, even requesting an honorary federal agent badge. The recorded handshake became one of the most requested photos from the United States National Archives. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe traveled to Korea to perform for more than 100,000 American soldiers serving during the Korean War. There were 4 days of shows at different bases, always with crowds ecstatic before her. Between glamorous dresses and even a baggy military uniform, Marilyn conquered the soldiers with her charisma and presence, becoming an unforgettable memory for those men in the middle of war. Robert F. Kennedy lying on the kitchen floor of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, moments after being shot on June 5th of 1968. Minutes earlier, he had given a speech celebrating his victory in the California Democratic primaries. Kennedy died the following morning, leaving the United States in shock at the loss of yet another political leader amid the turbulent decade of the 60s. This photo from 1945 shows actress Marlene Dietrich kissing a soldier returning from World War II in an attempt to lift troop morale. The scene took place aboard a ship, with Dietrich being lifted by other soldiers to reach the combatant through a hatch. Anna Nicole Smith next to oil billionaire J. Howard Marshall. In 1994, the 26-year-old model married the 89-year-old businessman in Houston, and the huge age difference generated several international headlines. After his death the following year, a long legal dispute began over the elderly man's inheritance. Michael Jackson caused a worldwide scandal in 2002 when he appeared on the balcony of a hotel in Berlin, holding his baby son outside the railing with only one arm while covering the child's face with a cloth. The scene happened in front of fans who screamed in shock and quickly spread through the media, becoming one of the most controversial episodes of his career. The case of Monica Lewinsky shook the presidency of Bill Clinton in 1998, when her involvement with the White House intern came to light and resulted in an impeachment process that almost cost him his position. Shortly afterward, a photo of the former president with Hillary Clinton on a beach gained huge repercussion. The embrace was seen as proof that she had decided to forgive him, becoming a symbol of the couple's reconstruction after the scandal. Marilyn Monroe became the first woman on the cover of Playboy magazine in December of 1953. But incredibly, she did not receive anything for the achievement. The publication used nude photos of her taken in 1949 for a calendar for which the actress had received only $50. The images were published without her permission, but ended up helping consolidate her image as a sex symbol and Hollywood icon. This police record shows Marilyn Monroe on February 4th of 1954, when she was arrested for driving without a license. Even in a situation of legal trouble, the actress maintained her characteristic charm, turning the record into one of the most curious and talked about moments of her trajectory off-screen. Martin Luther King being arrested in St. Augustine, Florida, in 1964 after demanding service at a whites-only restaurant. The record became a powerful portrait of the civil rights struggle, exposing the brutality of racial segregation and the courage to defy the racist system that prevailed in the United States. Freddie Mercury appears in one of his last photos, taken in 1991 in the garden of his home in Kensington, London. Already weakened by the disease, he appears thin but still serene, surrounded by flowers and accompanied by one of his beloved cats. Shortly afterward, on November 24th of 1991, the legendary Queen vocalist died from complications of AIDS. One day after publicly disclosing the diagnosis he had kept secret for years. The manager of the Monson Motor Lodge, James Brock, poured acid into the hotel pool to force black demonstrators who were swimming there to leave. The episode took place on June 18th of 1964 in St. Augustine, Florida, and was widely recorded by photographers, shocking the world and helping to expose the brutality of racism in the United States. Sophia Loren casting a not-so-discreet look at Jane Mansfield's daring neckline during a dinner in Hollywood in 1957. The moment was captured by cameras and quickly became one of the most comical records of the golden age of cinema. John Lennon appears in this photo signing a copy of the album Double Fantasy for Mark David Chapman, without imagining that this would be his killer. The meeting took place in New York on December 8th of 1980, at the entrance of the Dakota building where the musician lived with Yoko Ono. Hours later, Chapman shot Lennon, who died at the age of 40, in one of the most shocking crimes in music history. Arnold Schwarzenegger appeared in 1976 posing daringly next to Susan Geston, who would later become the wife of actor Jeff Bridges. The record became the subject of comments and speculation, being remembered as a provocation on Arnold's part. Kate Moss was seen leaving a nightclub with white powder stains on her pants, a detail that immediately caught the photographer's attention. The image reignited old rumors about drug use and quickly spread through international media. The episode reinforced the controversy surrounding the model, who had already faced similar scandals in her career. The Beatles appear lying in the ring in 1964, while Cassius Clay, the future Muhammad Ali, poses standing up simulating a victory over them. The fun meeting produced one of the most memorable images of the decade, bringing together the world's biggest British band and the boxer who would become a legend in the ring. In the 1950s, smoking on board was not only allowed, but encouraged by airlines. Some, such as Braniff Airways, even distributed free cigarettes to passengers along with meals. This Philip Morris pack is a curious example of that era when flying was still a symbol of luxury and glamour, and smoking was part of the experience. With a grotesque and disturbing smile, Conrad Veidt brought to life Gwynplaine in The Man Who Laughs of 1928. The empty stare and macabre grin created a grim and unforgettable image that later inspired the creation of the most insane villain in comic books, the Joker. 11 workers sitting on a beam more than 800 feet high in Manhattan during the construction of Rockefeller Center formed one of the most iconic images in history. The scene, although staged as promotion, still represented an act of courage by the workers. The record was only possible because a photographer also risked his life, balancing without protection over the abyss to capture the moment. Some believe this image shows Abraham Lincoln on his deathbed, shortly after the attack at Ford's Theater in April of 1865. The photo sparked debates among historians. While some claim it was taken that tragic night, others argue there is no concrete evidence of its authenticity. One last kiss before separation. At the 34th Street bus terminal in New York, a soldier says goodbye to his girlfriend on December 7th of 1941. About to depart for World War II, he is lifted by a comrade to reach his beloved in an unforgettable farewell. In the early 1900s, Niagara Falls was recorded completely frozen, transforming the site into a surreal landscape of ice and snow. Although it seems extraordinary, this phenomenon occasionally occurs during severe winters. A police officer stops traffic in New York around 1925 so that a cat carrying her kitten could cross safely. Anita Ekberg starred in one of Hollywood's most unusual scenes when she left her house with a bow and arrows to ward off paparazzi who were chasing her in Rome. The actress, already famous for the film La Dolce Vita, was defending her privacy when she was captured in this moment that quickly went around the world. The image became legendary and entered the list of the biggest scandals of the golden age of cinema. In 2021, photos of Nicolas Cage, drunk and barefoot, went viral after he was expelled from a restaurant in Las Vegas. The actor had reportedly consumed shots of whiskey and tequila before being removed from the premises by security guards. The images quickly spread through the media, turning the episode into one of the most talked about scandals of his career. Britney Spears was caught in a moment of fury attacking a paparazzo's car with a green umbrella after being surrounded by photographers in Los Angeles. The episode, which occurred in 2007, happened amid a turbulent phase marked by personal problems, custody battles for her children, and intense media pressure. The scandal involving Kristen Stewart gained strength in 2012 when photos emerged of her in an intimate moment with director Rupert Sanders, who was responsible for the film Snow White and the Huntsman. The images quickly spread through the media and revealed the extramarital affair. The repercussions were devastating, resulting in the end of the actress's relationship with Robert Pattinson and also the end of Sanders' marriage. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton were caught in an intimate moment during a boat ride while they were still married to other people. The images confirmed the extramarital affair between the two and caused a huge scandal in Hollywood in 1962. Shortly afterward, both divorced their partners and married each other, beginning one of the most intense relationships behind the scenes of cinema. In this photo, Marilyn Monroe appears provocatively, wrapped in sheets while biting a carrot in a relaxed mood. The record was part of a 1950s photo shoot that explored her natural and at the same time playful sensuality. Fans fell in love with the image, which crossed decades as a symbol of charm and boldness. In 1966, in New York, a Beatles fan in ecstasy had to be restrained by the police during the band's visit. The scene clearly portrays the collective hysteria that marked Beatlemania, when crowds of young people invaded airports, hotels, and stadiums in search of contact with their idols. The revolution of the miniskirt in the 1960s became a cultural milestone. More than just a fashion trend, the movement reflected women's struggle for freedom over their bodies. The piece quickly gained popularity on the streets and runways, becoming one of the most striking symbols of the decade. This brothel advertisement, more than 120 years old, is a rare artifact that reveals a hidden side of 19th century society. The image shows a sex worker posing next to a client, a portrait that served to attract patrons in a time when prostitution was surrounded by taboos. On the terrace of the Empire State Building in 1942, a couple was captured in a daring moment of intimacy against the iconic backdrop of New York. On August 14th of 1945, on VJ Day, when the United States celebrated the end of World War II, photographer Alfred Eisenstadt captured in Times Square the unexpected kiss between a sailor and a nurse. The scene, spontaneous and full of euphoria, became one of the most iconic symbols of victory. German soldiers celebrate Christmas in the trenches during World War I, around 1915. Gathered amid the cold and mud, they decorated a small Christmas tree and exchanged letters and gifts sent from home. The scene shows a rare moment of fellowship amid the devastating setting of the war that ravaged Europe. During a protest against the Vietnam War in 1967 in Washington, a young man faced rows of armed soldiers and placed flowers in the barrels of their rifles. The scene, captured by Mark Ribot, became a powerful symbol of peaceful resistance to wars in which the United States was involved. In 1975, during a Senate hearing investigating abuses committed by the United States intelligence services, a terrifying object was revealed: a secret CIA weapon. At first glance, it looked like just an adapted pistol, but it fired darts with frozen shellfish toxin that melted inside the victim's body. The effect was lethal and almost impossible to detect, as it simulated a heart attack. Silent, it was effective at up to 300 feet from the target. Just minutes before one of the most striking tragedies of the 20th century, this photo shows Princess Diana in the backseat of a black Mercedes-Benz, leaving the Ritz Hotel in Paris alongside Dodi Fayed. Paparazzi on motorcycles chased the car as it sped through the city streets. Moments later, in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel on August 31st of 1997, the vehicle crashed violently, taking Diana's life and leaving the whole world in shock. Michael Jackson appears in his last rehearsal performance on the stage of the Staples Center in Los Angeles on June 24th of 2009. The star was preparing for the long-awaited This Is It tour, still displaying his characteristic energy but also clear signs of exhaustion. The following morning, on June 25th, he died of cardiac arrest caused by acute propofol intoxication, leaving the world in shock at the sudden loss of the King of Pop. Robin Williams appears smiling in a photo taken by a fan in an ice cream shop just days before his death. Despite the friendly expression, friends reported that the actor was already battling a severe form of dementia that affected his mood and behavior. On August 11th of 2014, the world lost one of the greatest comedians and actors of his generation. The historic moment when Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un met and shook hands in the demilitarized zone of Korea. The meeting, which took place in June of 2019, marked the first time that a president of the United States crossed the line that separates the two Koreas. Muhammad Ali immortalized over Sonny Liston, knocked out in just 1 minute and 44 seconds on May 25th of 1965. A record that defined his image as the greatest of all time. British soldiers dressed in women's clothing appear in this unusual photo from World War II. They were participating in a joke when a German air raid began, forcing them to immediately run to their posts. Still wearing dresses, they manned naval artillery to defend the position, resulting in a comic record. In the early 1920s, alligator farms were popular tourist attractions in the United States. In Los Angeles, one of them became famous for scenes like this, where visitors dined surrounded by reptiles without any safety barriers. After numerous incidents, the site was closed in 1957. Betty Page and model Johnny Wilson appear in a provocative photo celebrating National Hot Dog Day in the 1950s. Wearing daring bikinis for the time, they posed playfully on a park bench. The record became a striking example of the provocative retro style. In 1936, a curious device was created to mark artificial dimples on the face, inspired by the style of actress Marlene Dietrich, considered a beauty icon of the time. The demand came from the desire of many women to look like her, reproducing even the smallest details of her appearance. In 1889, this Native American family was sent to be exhibited in a European human zoo, a cruel and dehumanizing practice that turned entire cultures into exotic attractions for the colonial gaze. Princess Diana met Mother Teresa in New York in 1997 in a moment that symbolized humility and mutual respect. Two women admired worldwide for their dedication to the most vulnerable, exchanged simple gestures, yet loaded with meaning, shortly before both passed away in the same year. In June of 1989 in Beijing, an anonymous man challenged a row of tanks, stopping them alone in the middle of the avenue during the crackdown in Tiananmen Square. The scene, captured by Jeff Widener, became one of the greatest symbols of individual courage against oppression. To this day, it is not known who he was, whether he survived, or what his fate was. In one of his last public appearances, Steve Jobs appeared extremely frail, walking with difficulty alongside a close friend. The image shows the Apple co-founder in a fragile state, just months after resigning as CEO. Jobs passed away on October 5th of 2011 at the age of 56 after a long battle with a rare pancreatic cancer, leaving a legacy that forever transformed technology. This is a photo of Leonardo DiCaprio at 16 years old, still at the beginning of his career. With his youthful look and natural charisma, he was already drawing attention on television and beginning to stand out as a young Hollywood promise, long before becoming one of the most awarded and respected actors in world cinema. The iconic photo showing Marilyn Monroe with her white dress lifted by the wind was taken in 1954 in front of the Translux Theater on Lexington Avenue. The scene drew a crowd, even though it was in the middle of the night, and consolidated her image as a symbol of sensuality and glamour. In May of 1969, on the program Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Fred Rogers placed his feet in a small pool alongside the character Officer Francois Clemens, a black cast member. At a time when racial segregation in public pools was still a controversial issue, this simple gesture conveyed a powerful message of equality during the Civil Rights Movement. This photo shows Steve Jobs at 18 years old, still in school, before becoming one of the greatest visionaries of modern technology. With long hair and a dreamy look, Jobs already conveyed the creative restlessness that would later lead him to found Apple and revolutionize the world. Laika, a stray dog from Moscow, became a symbol of the space race when she was sent by the Soviet Union aboard Sputnik 2 in 1957. She was the first living being to orbit the Earth, but her journey had no return. There was no rescue plan. In this rare photo, Kurt Cobain appears next to a friend in Seattle, looking downcast and distant. Just days later, on April 8th of 1994, the Nirvana frontman would be found dead in his home. The image became one of the last records of Cobain alive, eternalizing the melancholic and troubled aura of the eternal grunge legend. On the South Lawn of the White House in 1993, Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat sealed a historic handshake, with Bill Clinton as a witness. The gesture marked the Oslo Accords, a symbol of hope amid the prolonged Israeli-Palestinian conflict, although definitive peace was never achieved. In the 1960s, the miniskirt was not just an aesthetic revolution, but also a silent political act. Young women began wearing the shortcut as a way of challenging conservative standards and asserting autonomy over their own bodies. Ham, the chimpanzee, was the first great primate sent into space by NASA in 1961. After 15 months of training, he performed simple tasks, such as pulling levers during the flight. Ham survived the mission and returned safely, spending the rest of his life in zoos. On April 25th of 1991, Diana, Princess of Wales, is seen at the University Hospital of Rio de Janeiro, where she visited AIDS patients. In a striking gesture, she shook hands with a patient without using gloves, something unthinkable at the time, when there was still much fear and misinformation about the transmission of HIV. During the most intense years of the civil rights movement in the United States, in Birmingham, Alabama, police repression was brutal. In one of his most striking photos, photographer Charles Moore captured the moment when a police dog attacked an African-American demonstrator during a peaceful march. The blizzard of 1888 transformed New York into a chaotic scene, covering entire streets with snow and leaving overhead cables even more frightening. Known as one of the worst storms in the history of the United States, it killed more than 400 people, paralyzed transportation, and exposed the structural flaws of large cities. A rare French postcard from around 1913 captures an unusual scene. The tallest man, the shortest man, and the fattest man in Europe gathered at a card table. Tobey Maguire and Leonardo DiCaprio, two boys who had no idea of the worldwide fame they would achieve, were photographed in 1989 bowling. Friends since their early youth in Hollywood, they shared simple and fun moments long before becoming major movie stars. Women imprisoned on Roosevelt Island in 1932 in the East River in New York were recorded during an unusual shooting training inside the prison, a practice designed for discipline and rehabilitation. Lisa Lyon, pioneer of female bodybuilding in the United States, in 1979 marked a revolution in the sport by paving the way for the appreciation of female muscular strength and aesthetics. Her iconic presence united art, athletics, and daring, transforming her into a cultural and beauty symbol beyond competitions. In the 1970s, Joanna Lumley embodied British glamour and daring, but it was in photos like this that her image became even more striking. Posing with sensual elegance, she displayed a seductive smile while revealing a weapon strapped to her leg. The mixture of femininity and danger turned the actress into a true style icon of her era. Stephen Hawking and his wife Jane Wilde in 1965, shortly after their wedding. The young physicist had already been diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, but continued developing his studies and academic career. Jane, by his side, was essential in providing support during the early years of the disease and the beginning of his scientific journey. Henry Ford, the man who revolutionized the automotive industry by introducing the assembly line, the $5 daily wage, and paid rest on Saturdays and Sundays, also carried a dark side. A declared anti-Semite, he even inspired Hitler himself. In this photo, he appears receiving the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, the highest Nazi honor awarded to foreigners. A photo of singer Madonna leaving an event in Los Angeles in 2008 caused worldwide repercussions by showing her arms with prominently bulging veins. The image quickly spread across the internet and became one of the most talked about records of the time, raising hypotheses about drug use. A rare record of Madonna, Sting, and Tupac Shakur sharing the same table at a 1990 event. Few knew at the time that Madonna had a brief relationship with the rapper before his death in 1996. Marilyn Monroe surprised Hollywood by posing dressed as a prostitute in a studio during the filming of the movie Bus Stop. The photos, taken in 1954, became known as Hooker Sitting and showed a daring side of the actress, who was already a constant target of the media. The shoot was considered scandalous for the time and became one of the most remembered records of her career. This photo shows the moment right after the fight in which Solange attacked Jay-Z inside an elevator in 2014 after rumors of infidelity. Upon leaving, the tension was evident with Beyoncé next to them, and Jay-Z can be seen with his hand on his face, signaling discomfort. Tupac Shakur appears in this photo inside a car in Las Vegas, just hours before suffering the attack that would take his life. The rapper was shot in a shooting on September 13th of 1996, while he was next to Suge Knight, president of Death Row Records. 6 days later, Tupac died in the hospital at the age of 25. The moment when actor Walter Chiari lost control and attacked photographer Tadzio Secchiaroli on the streets of Rome in 1957. At the time, the actor was in a romance with star Ava Gardner and was closely followed by paparazzi who documented every step of the couple. The episode ended up symbolizing the beginning of the intense confrontational relationship between celebrities and photographers in Italy. In the 1940s, durability tests of aircraft in the United States were carried out in an impressive and unconventional way. Dozens of soldiers were positioned on the wings to demonstrate structural resistance. The scene, which today seems curious, served as visual proof of the solidity of military planes. In this photo, a young student is trained in a civil rights activist school in the 1960s not to react to provocations. While one person pulls her hair, another blows cigarette smoke in her face, simulating the type of aggression she would face in peaceful protests. These preparatory exercises were essential for demonstrators to remain calm in the face of real violence on the streets. This photo shows Betty Bjurström, a Swedish actress often mistaken for Marilyn Monroe, posing in Paris in the year 1947. The resemblance between the two was impressive and led Betty to be frequently associated with the Hollywood icon, even without having followed the same career of worldwide fame. Elke Sommer, a German-American actress, appears in a 1950s photo shoot that highlights the glamour that made her one of the most popular pin-ups of the time. Combining striking beauty and strong presence in front of the cameras, she gained prominence in international cinema and became one of the symbols of sensuality of the period. In 1983, Sharon Stone was still just a model, but already drew attention for her magnetic presence in front of the cameras. A few years later, that same intensity would lead her to become a star in Basic Instinct, transforming her into a Hollywood icon. In 1950, after criticism that her beauty depended only on luxurious clothes, Marilyn Monroe responded boldly and humorously by posing for a photo shoot wearing only a potato sack. The result was even more provocative than any glamorous dress. The photos became iconic, proving that Marilyn's magnetism did not come from her clothes. This photo of Freddie Mercury's downcast look was sold for $230,000 to a paparazzo. Taken in London in the early 1990s during a dinner, the image exposed to the world the fragility of the singer, who was already silently facing the terminal stages of AIDS. With a machete in hand and a bottle of tiger blood, Charlie Sheen was seen on a Beverly Hills terrace, bizarrely celebrating his exit from the series 2.5 Men. In 2011, the actor shouted, "Free at last," in front of photographers and onlookers, turning the episode into one of the biggest scandals of his career and reinforcing his image of unpredictable behavior. In 1959, Father Don Gussoni left a nightclub in Rome and tried to take a photographer's camera, but failed. The images were released and caused a scandal, tarnishing his reputation by exposing unexpected behavior for a religious leader of the time. Paris Hilton was photographed at a nightclub in Saint-Tropez during a night of intense partying when she was dancing drunk next to strangers and ended up exposing her underwear. She did not realize she was having one of those nights, and everything turned into controversy. The images quickly circulated in the media, reinforcing her reputation as an icon of scandals of the 2000s. Julia Roberts drew attention by raising her arm on a red carpet and revealing unshaven armpits. The image gained prominence in the media and generated debates about whether the actress was making a statement of freedom against beauty standards or if she had simply been careless. Marlene Dietrich starred in a scandal when she physically attacked a photographer at a Paris airport when he tried to take some shots without her permission. The actress reacted violently, but another paparazzo nearby ended up capturing the entire scene. The kiss between Britney Spears and Madonna on the stage of the VMA in 2003 became one of the most scandalous moments in pop culture. The episode happened during the opening performance of the award show, when the two singers shared the spotlight with Christina Aguilera. The scene was broadcast live to millions of viewers and immediately made headlines around the world. Britney Spears was photographed in a controversial moment in May of 2006, when she almost dropped her baby while holding a drink at the same time. The scene generated a huge media frenzy and raised criticism of her ability as a mother. The episode weighed heavily in her custody battles and marked yet another turbulent chapter in her personal life. This scene shows the desperation of Melora Rivera, who ran to the roof of her house trying to escape an intruder. What makes the image even more frightening is that moments later, the intruder appeared behind her, leaving her with no escape route. Benito Mussolini, who in 1911 criticized Italian colonialism in Libya as a socialist, 2 decades later, already as a fascist dictator, proclaimed himself protector of Islam. In 1937, he was photographed by photojournalist Luigi Leone raising the so-called Sword of Islam during a ceremony in Tripoli. The image was retouched to remove a man holding the horse, fabricating the aura of a strong and self-sufficient leader.